good morning. I am Liz. I am one half of the Rising Tide Women team, and I rearranged my office this week, so my lighting and everything looks a little bit different, but I am going to get Lindsay, my other half, on here in a minute. Just kidding. We'll get her on here. But happy Monday. Good morning. I hope you all are happy and well. And today we're going to be talking about breastfeeding, nursing, and going back to work because this is a topic I wanted to talk about for a while, but actually this week I have had so many questions about variations on this theme. A lot of families are just hungry for information about how do we introduce a bottle, when do I start pumping, all of this good stuff. So that is really what we are working on. Today is just talking about the logistics. And so if you are watching live and you have questions, you can add them and they will pop up and we will do our best to answer them. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So for folks that don't know, Lindsay and I are business partners. We are BFFs also, and we live an hour away from each other, so we don't get to see each other in person that much. But so like these Monday lives are great, but I'm super excited, Lindsay. I get to hang out with you in person later today.
Yes.
It's gonna be good.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
coffee's good.
yeah. Pardon me. So my cough. Um, ah. For those of you that don't know us, who may not be familiar with what we do, Lindsay, do you want to share how amazing and awesome you are and what you do at Rising Tide? I'm going to put you on the
Um,
spot. I'm sorry.
so I am one of the doulas, and my specialty is the birth doula aspect. So I support families through their pregnancies. I mean, we both support them through their pregnancies, but their labors, and then immediately postpartum, I am with families, helping them figure things out and learning with them. I don't know everything. So it's a lot of fun actually becoming part of the family and learning with them and growing with them as well. We also do birth education, and I'm a lactation educator, and I do postpartum doula work.
Yeah. We should
Yeah,
do a whole
good.
video about postpartum work,
Hmm.
Lindsay. We should.
Yes, yes,
I am,
absolutely.
yeah, we should. I am Liz. I am the other half of the team, and I do birth education with Lindsay. We tag team those classes, and we actually have a bunch of them coming up, which is so
Hmm.
exciting. They're so fun.
Yes.
Um, we basically like we show up at your house and we bring all kinds of random stuff like this baby, and um, we just talk
That
about
you
birth.
just happen to have hanging out.
I thought we might need him later, so I just wanted to, pick my bud.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, so we basically just show up and talk about birth and get all your questions answered. We tailor our whole curriculum around whatever questions you might have.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of fun. We have a good time. I also am trained as a birth doula, but currently I'm only supporting those with scheduled cesarean births because that is my wheelhouse, my area of expertise. And I also do postpartum doula support, like Lindsay does. And I'm an IBCLC, so I'm a lactation consultant. I'm an international board certified lactation consultant and also a certified lactation counselor. So basically, I'm a boob nerd. That's kind of what I do. So,
And that supports everyone, which a lot of people don't always realize that lactation support wherever you are in your journey, or whatever your current decisions are or thoughts, lactation support really goes a long way for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. People are really surprised to find out that I do consults with folks who are not breastfeeding. And so that's a great thing to point out is that I actually, all of our birth doula clients get a lactation consult. And if they're not breastfeeding, we just tailor it towards their questions. We're not here to judge you or shame you. We're just here to support you because there's a lot that goes into those choices. So we just want to support you. And so a lactation consult for someone who is not nursing often looks like helping them to downregulate their milk supply without discomfort or without too much discomfort. It's kind of uncomfortable all the way around, but so it's really and it it's just a different process, but we support that.
Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yes, that's our thing. I always tell people like we're here to give you information, and we're very into non-judgmental support.
Yeah.
That's our thing.
Yeah. We just want to fill you with love and as much confidence in this world as possible, and to also, that when I say learn with you, just be with you. It's not a matter of us coming into your space and telling you everything that you have to do and everything that works for one person. It really is so fluid, and we change day to day, and maybe the plan that was for yesterday might not work for today. So what can we do to either get your mind to rest or your body to rest, or all of those, and how can we get you to eat and eventually transition as you get ready to go back to work, if that is what's going on.
Yeah. Absolutely. And going back to work is like a big source of anxiety for a lot of new parents. Like I have literally, when I worked in the hospital, I've had people, their baby is like 4 hours old and they're like, how do I go back to work? What is the deal? So there is a lot of anxiety around that. And I hear that. I have been there. I know you have been there, Lindsay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I actually tell folks, and this is actually my biggest recommendation, is don't worry about it at first. You don't have to start pumping as soon as your baby's born. Certainly not without a good reason. Like if baby's not nursing, then yeah, pump. But otherwise, just focus on just being with your baby. Really that first month. I really am a big fan of just having that time for parents and baby to just bond, get nursing off to a good start, and then around a month you can start introducing new things like pumping, some bottles. But if you don't need to before then, don't sweat it.
Right. I know. I just, I feel for those that do have to go back to work sooner.
Yeah.
And we do need other support measures in place for everyone, but also those that are going back a little sooner, before baby really is ready to be away from their mom.
Yeah. And I thank you for mentioning that, because that's like a big part of our thing too, is like most new parents can't afford to take a lot of time off from work. Even if you might have that protected paid leave for 8, 12, 6 weeks, financially it's not doable for a lot of folks. And so that's a big part of our mission, is also supporting legislation around paid family leave, because this is important. Parents deserve this, and babies deserve this.
Babies deserve it.
Yeah. People think that it takes 6 weeks to recover from giving birth, and that's not the score. Like 6 weeks out, you're good, but you're not fully recovered, and you're still really raw, and it's a really vulnerable place. So, paid family leave.
Yeah. and just being tired. I don't want to harp on the being tired, but it's such a big thing that, you know, people will
Yeah.
say, like, towards the end of pregnancy or even in the middle of pregnancy or wherever, maybe they weren't a great sleeper to begin with, but oh, you know, the baby's getting me ready for the sleepless nights, but they're a little bit more extra
Yeah.
than that, and we can't prepare you physically for that unless we told you to stay awake for 2 weeks straight, which that just wouldn't be
Yeah. But then you'd just
great
already be
advice.
tired.
Yeah, so just it really compounds everything, and we are looking to find ways to really help everyone
Yeah.
deal with the fact that the sleep disturbance and change really affects everything in the long run. Also, when you are going back to work, that's what people start getting concerned about is, you know, my baby isn't sleeping through the night at 6, 12, 18, and then on to months and years. And
Yeah.
that's normal. You know, number one, that's normal. You know,
Yeah.
we're in such a rush to get back to sleep that because we have to go back to work, and then that
Yeah.
could affect milk and overall well-being,
Yeah.
which we're really hoping to help families get through.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and that's the reality is like we make these recommendations like spend the first month just breastfeeding. Not that it's ever just breastfeeding, like it's a lot of work. Um, it's important.
I just imagine someone just, you know, laying there, you know, it's just how it is.
Just doing nothing,
The dishes can wait.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, and that's optimal circumstances. If that's not a reality for you, get in touch with me. I can help you make a plan that is still going to work for you. Because that's, the reality is a lot of parents don't have that option. So, but if you can, just that first month breastfeeding, and don't even get the pump out of the package unless you have a good reason to. Just like, I feel like we get these new gadgets and we're like, yeah, I want to open them and I want to try it out. And like why? Just leave it.
It is. It's a lot of tubes and
yeah. And for some folks, it's a little overwhelming.
Right. And we can even open that box with you.
Yes, I actually.
We can doula you through unboxing. I think that's a thing now, right? Is that a thing?
I think so. I think people do it on Facebook Live. I don't know. Yeah.
We'll unbox a pump. How about we unbox a pump sometime and we show you all the pieces?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I always tell people just do like a no stakes, just like try it just to see, when you're ready, when it's time. Just try it just to see, and just like don't assume you're gonna get any milk. Just don't assume anything. Just try and figure out how it goes, just to kind of like break the seal almost. Like just get over that hump, and then the second time you'll be like, okay, I know how to put this thing together.
Yeah. I mean, it's super overwhelming.
Yeah.
And not every pump is right for every different type of personality.
Yeah.
And body. I personally loved my manual hand pump.
Yeah.
I loved it. I felt that I got more milk and it was more convenient for me. I had less to lug around. That's my personality. I tried the big electric ones and I just was like, there's too much on top of everything else that I have to do. So patience with yourself, and remember that just because you asked someone or a group and they say, oh, you have to have this type, you really don't.
Absolutely. And for me, the hand pump was totally useless. I was a NICU mom, so I was pumping to establish my supply. And at one point they were like, you could try a hand pump. And I was like, what is this? This is nothing. So I had we rented the hospital grade industrial strength breast pump. But there's a whole host of things in between those two, and
Yep.
they're great. They work for different reasons, different people.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah, absolutely. So, and then so a lot of people ask what kind of pump, and sometimes many of us are kind of, it's dictated by what's covered by our insurance.
Mm.
So, and then sometimes your insurance will give you a couple of choices. And really, ask around, see what your friends, what has worked well for them. Most of the pumps are fairly similar. Personally, because I'm an IBCLC, I'm a fan of the companies that comply with the World Health Organization's code around marketing breast milk substitutes, which you should just Google that if you're at all interested in lactation. Just Google WHO code, and you'll find a lot of interesting information. But I mean, really, they're all, most of the breast pumps out there are pretty standardized.
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of folks say, like, when should I start pumping in earnest? I am a big fan of just use that first month, and then you can pump here and there. But you don't need to be pumping on the regular just because your baby's a month old. It's not like some like turkey timer pops up and like it's time to pump all the time. Uh, but like, here and there. And then as you start getting closer to heading back to work, usually around as many as 4 weeks ahead, but really by 2 weeks ahead, you should be starting pumping maybe once a day. Just squeeze it in whenever you can. If possible, the same time every day is great, but if that's not possible, that's okay. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's like I say that like probably at least once every consult. I'm like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. um, and basically, you're just gonna pump once a day for like 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a big deal. And you also, like, there's this video going around Facebook right now of the woman with like 5,000 ounces of breast milk in her freezer. Have you seen this? Like,
I have.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. We've all seen it. So it's like the most anxiety inducing video for moms who are headed back to work because they're like, oh my God, am I supposed to have 5,000 ounces in my freezer? Like, my freezer stash is not big enough. And the reality is, like, that's fine. You don't need 5,000 ounces. You don't even need 100 ounces. Like, you really don't. And the reason being is that, it's hard to pump when you're nursing a baby full time because the baby is drinking most of the milk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's normal. People always are panicked. I feel like no matter how much milk they pump, they're panicked about it. Like they're like, oh my gosh, I've literally heard the phrase, I only pumped a half ounce. And I've also heard, I only pumped 6 ounces.
Right.
Like people, and no matter how much they pump, they're panicked. So I always want to give a shout out that the amount of milk you are able to pump, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, this is important.
Get out we need the megaphone.
The megaphone. The amount of milk you are able to pump is not a measure of your milk supply. It's so important. So, but I would say if you can put a little bit away in the freezer, because the thing that happens is ideally you're going to be able to pump at work. And so you'll be pumping the next day's milk while you're at work that first day. And so, in an ideal world, that's how it's going to work. For most of us, we might need to dip into our freezer supply. And that's why it's good to have some in the freezer. But, it's not the end all be all to have 1 million ounces in your freezer. That's kind of insane.
That's a lot. I don't have the freezer space.
No, in the video she has like 1 million freezers. She has like 5 freezers.
And I'm like, that is so amazing. But I'm like, wow. Like,
what do you do with it?
What? Somebody drink it.
Is she gonna make ice cream? Because I'm kind of intrigued. Like,
yeah, like a milk bath. Like, that stuff's good for all over.
For your skin.
Yeah, like I'll take a bath in some.
Just, make somebody I know, and I can't remember who it was, somebody made lotion out of it because they had
Sure.
some that had gone off and they didn't want to waste it, so they made lotion, which I thought was really cool. So, you can do a lot. But
Just the
uh,
recipes.
yeah, I mean, but also there's only so much milk your baby can drink in a year, and it's
Right.
only in a deep freeze, it's only good for a year.
Right.
I haven't done the math, but I'm not sure if it's less than 5,000 or more than 5,000. Uh, but so yeah, so you do not need a giant milk stash. I feel like sometimes, and the moms that do that, like, by the way, like high fives all around. If you
Oh,
have a giant milk stash, you should be so proud of it. But I think the danger is that then everyone thinks they need to do that, and you don't.
right.
So
And not everybody's body produces that much. I mean, luckily they do explain somewhere in that video, if it is even the same one, that she is a hyper milk producer, which, I think we just, as parents, we're just always worried about, did my kids eat enough? And even as a parent of children who are eating solids and dinner, sometimes I'm like, did you eat enough? Did you eat enough? And I used to think a full belly made my kids sleep more, and I would get into this whole cyclone of, if your tummy isn't full enough, you aren't going to sleep, and I need you to sleep because I need to sleep, or I need to get other things done. And it really gets vicious inside. It got vicious inside my head, where I was obsessed. So
yes.
we really obsess about our kids eating enough, and I believe that typically starts with the milk
I think,
and the
and
dash.
yeah, and so much of it is we get, again, we have a lot of cultural weirdness around food. And I think that like we do have a lot of anxiety because we're constantly getting this cultural messaging that our breast milk isn't enough. We're not enough for our baby. And, there are like real scientifically backed ways to tell if your baby is getting enough milk. So if you are concerned that your baby's not, you should call an IBCLC. I'm available.
Yep.
You know, but for most of us, if we're nursing enough and if we're taking care of ourselves and our baby and we're responding to baby's feeding cues, our breast milk is going to be enough. And I say for most of us because there are a million different circumstances where that's not the case, but most of the time it is. But I think that you're so right. It does carry over into childhood, you know, and I remember my first two had weight gain issues at the very beginning. And for years, I was obsessed with their food intake. Like, I would be like, oh my gosh, did they eat enough? Are they going to grow properly? And the reality is they're fine. Like, I had to like really let go of that though.
Yeah. Right. Oh no, and that's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard.
And I think that, I see that with parents if their baby has weight gain issues at the beginning, where baby is not gaining weight well for whatever reason, that anxiety carries over. It stays for a long time because,
Hmm.
Providing for your offspring is like a really instinctive, visceral thing. And
Yeah, it's like a major part of the job.
kind of, yeah, like it's a big deal. But there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in that. And so I just
Yeah.
want to honor that those feelings are real.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
That's,
Yes.
that's what we do. We want
That's
to honor all the feels, all your feelings.
so, as someone is beginning their journey back to the workforce, say to a place where they can't bring their baby, because sometimes some people do get to bring their babies, and that's quite lovely, or have their babies brought to them at work. That's always nice.
Yeah.
But for those that don't quite have that opportunity, I know you were talking about possibly when to start pumping. A lot of the questions that we get are, when do I introduce a bottle? Or the baby won't take a bottle. How, and then, what bottle do I get?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And and that was a big thing I wanted to talk about today, because that was many of the questions I got this week was like, baby won't take a bottle, and they needed to give one for whatever reason. Hi, sorry.
A
Um,
little frozen.
yeah, just froze for a second.
It's all
Um,
right.
so, in terms of introducing a bottle, what's that? Oh, sorry. Can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, sorry. I had a minute. It sounded like you were talking, but your mouth wasn't moving. Um,
I'm that good.
you are that good. It's your doula ESP. You were like beaming thoughts.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and I have talked to folks who introduce a bottle once around a month, baby's good with it, and then they don't introduce the bottle again for another month until mom's ready to go back to work. I also have worked with families who have introduced the bottle at a month and had no problem, and then a month later, baby's like, I'm not doing
Yep.
it. So, and like, so first of all, I will say if baby is refusing a bottle, generally that means that breastfeeding is going well. So if that's you, pat yourself on the back, because that's great, but also it's frustrating. And it's really anxiety inducing to have a baby who won't eat from a bottle when you know that you have to go back to work and you're not going to be able to nurse. It's really nerve wracking for a lot of parents. So my advice is to keep trying, but the caveat with that is keep meal times chill. Um,
Mm.
and this is actually something I tell parents who are having trouble with breastfeeding too, is when baby is eating, don't make it a high stress situation. There is never a moment where if your baby doesn't eat right now, they're going to die. That doesn't exist. Those moments don't happen, even though it might feel that way.
Mm.
So just like when I tell parents who are nursing, like if you're trying to get baby on the breast and they're not having it and they're stressed out or you're stressed out, take a break, hug it out, put them up to center, pat their back, pat their butts. I don't know why they love having their butts
Oh, they
patted.
love that.
Love
Oh, do
it.
the butt pat. People are always like, really? And I'm like, butt pat.
It works, yeah.
They
Pat the
do.
butt. But just hug it out. That's what I would say. Just hug it out till everybody's chill. Then you can put baby back on the breast. And the same thing with a bottle. If you're trying to feed baby a bottle and they're getting stressed out,
Mm.
take a break, because you don't want them to have that association that like bottle equals unpleasantness. Just like with the breast, you don't want them to have that association that like food equals stress. Um,
Mm.
and if you are in that place already, it's okay. You can come back from that by just, like make it a little more chill. So if you're trying to give baby a bottle and they're resisting, make it a game. You can sit them up. Like I have my baby sitting up here. This baby weighs less than a normal baby, so it's okay, but, and kind of have that bottle and tickle their lips with it and just let them reach for it. So
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
going to take the bottle and stuff it in their mouth. Nobody likes that.
No,
That's
please.
not nice. But kind of tickle their lips, let them explore. And I think that is one of the big things with babies and with oral stimulation is that you want to let them lead the way, let them explore. Most babies, if you tickle the lower lip, they'll stick their tongue out and they'll start kind of like, what is this? They'll start exploring. That's what you want with a bottle. And even if you do nothing more than that the first few times, that's good. You're building that trust, you're building that association. So, but that's like one of my biggest suggestions is like, if you're in a stressed out place or if baby is stressed out, take a break. It's okay. Come back to it in a little bit. There's no make or break moment for your baby,
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really big because it feels very high stakes, but it's kind of not.
Right.
So just we're all just gonna CTFD, you
Right.
know?
And I think that a lot of that goes with so much in parenting is just let's take a break, let's regroup, which you can't always think of always in the exact moment, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to even put yourself in a little bit of a calm down time is kind of what we call it. Just go, let's go calm down,
Yeah.
and we can think clearer and right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts, it starts in infancy. It starts in the newborn stage. Um, so, that I think will get most of us a lot of the way there, but it won't fix all of those issues if your baby's not taking a bottle. But
Right.
also, don't be afraid to play around with the timing. I am always saying to parents that nothing
Hmm.
is irrevocable. It's not like you offered baby a bottle and now you can never go back. Like if you are offering a bottle and you start to get sore nipples, um, it's okay to back off on that and take a look at, okay, what can we do to facilitate a better latch on the bottle? What can we do? Can we just take a break and focus on breastfeeding for a few days? It's just because you introduce something doesn't mean you're stuck with it forever. And this goes for sleep habits, it goes for feeding habits, like literally anything. Nothing is written in stone. So, like,
And tomorrow is a whole new day, and it's a whole new baby. I always tell myself and other new parents, like, I haven't lived today yet, so I don't know what I'm going to learn. I don't know what's ahead of me. I don't know what challenges are ahead of me, but every day is a whole new parenting
yeah.
experience,
And
because maybe something that was going on yesterday, today is the new day.
yeah.
We just
And
don't get any sort of warning that today is the day that it's gonna work out.
yeah, no, we don't. But I think too, like in terms of just parenting philosophy, one of the best bits of advice I ever heard was actually when I was a teacher, I did seminars on classroom management. And this guy that was teaching the seminar said, you know, if you mess up with your classroom management, if you mess up with your discipline, it's okay, you know, but because the kids are always going to give you another chance to do it better.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
like, if I mess up with mealtime, if I mess up with, discipline with my kids, which I do constantly, by the way, um, you know what? They're always going to give me another chance to
Yep.
do it better.
Right. Absolutely. And that goes for, just because we're talking about going back to work and the bottle. Keep trying.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
trying.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to change things up. So for some
Mhm.
babies, and if you Google this, which I know people are Googling, stop Googling, go to Kelly Mom
Get
instead.
off the Google.
Yeah, back away from the Google. Um, but for some babies, having a new feeding method works best after they've just nursed. So for some babies, it helps
Hmm.
when they're not really hungry, they're super chilled
Right.
out, they're kind of sleepy. That's a good time. Other babies do better when they're hungry but not freaking out. So, and the theme here is when they're not freaking out. So I always tell people, like, if you're like really upset, you're doing the ugly cry, like you're really in it and somebody's like, have a sandwich. Like, you don't want a sandwich right then. And you certainly don't want someone stuffing a sandwich in your
Right.
face. So, like, I use that analogy all the
Yeah.
time. But, like,
Yeah.
hug it out. If babies,
Hugs.
yeah, just the butt pat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm a big fan. I tell everybody about paced bottle feeding also because it's a little, we tend to imagine babies nursing in this position where they're kind of prone and we stick the bottle in there, and it's a little bit like drinking from a gravity bong. Like it's like, or a fire hose. Like baby is getting kind of inundated with this flow. So I'm a big fan of sitting baby up, whether
Ah,
that's like, you know, supporting the jaw this way or up in your arm, kind of like
yeah.
this. Um,
Yes.
and holding the bottle at a little bit, probably a little more than a 90-degree angle, but just enough so that there's milk in the nipple of the bottle. And then tip it down every so often, but keep that nipple in baby's mouth. In the comments, when we're done, I'll share a video that is my favorite video to share for paced bottle feeding. But the reason we like paced bottle feeding is because babies can sort of manage it on their own. Again, we want to listen to their feeding cues. We don't want to be stuffing them full so that it's like Thanksgiving dinner every meal. We want them to be able to choose and say like, I'm done now. And that's
Mhm.
because that's how breastfeeding works, and that's how we want all babies, no matter what is in the bottle or what reason they're getting a bottle. We want them all to be able to follow their own feeding cues. So
I love that.
yeah, I think it's huge. Um, so, you know, definitely I'm a big fan of paced bottle feeding. I'll share that link in the comments when we're done. And but really just kind of, you know, don't be afraid to change up that timing, change up the bottle nipple. Everybody wants to know what bottle should I buy? Um, I recommend the slowest flow you can find. And the reason is that we talk
Agree.
about um, nipple confusion, which is like kind of not, it's kind of a misnomer. Babies aren't confused. They're not confused. Uh, they just have a preference. And so, what we think of as nipple confusion between breasts and bottles is often
Mm-hmm.
what we call a flow preference, where babies get used to that fast, steady flow from a bottle. And they're like, why am I going to work harder for a slower flow?
Mm-hmm.
Because babies are smart. Um, and they want to work smarter, not harder. And so what I recommend is using the slowest flow nipple you can. And that paced bottle feeding also is going to support having a bit of a slower flow. So feedings may take longer, but that's okay. That's normal. We want to let baby have a little more control over that flow and slow it so that we're still supporting continued breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and try
Yep.
different nipples, try different bottles. Some people swear by Dr. Brown, some people swear by the Avent or Tommy Tippy or Komotomo. There's like a million cutesy names. Uh,
Kumatomo, Tommy Tippy,
there's like, and there's like all of,
drop-ins
yeah,
on. I mean, I had two laid back kids that, you know, when it was time for a bottle and for me to go back to work, they just went for it. And then my third, which I I assumed he would just be like the others. um we had a lot of butt pats and just regrouping because he was not having it. And I tried oh my gosh, I tried all the bottles and all the things. And then one
yeah,
day he was ready. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
okay, like today was your day. And it did, it took a lot. It took a lot.
yeah. But
I
that,
did not have Liz in my life at that point. So
I think that's important to know too, is that so much of this is dependent on kind of inborn personality, because I never realized until I started working in the hospital and saw babies, you know, like tens and twenties of babies every day, is that babies are born with their own opinions about how this is going to go down. They're born
yeah,
with their own personalities. And really until we had our third kid, because then it had this moment of like, oh, we do all the same stuff with him and it works. It didn't work at the other two.
mm-hmm.
Um, so like a lot of this is about inborn personality and temperament with your kids. So however things are going, however frustrating it may be, or however not frustrating it may be,
Right,
um, resist that temptation to take all the credit or all the blame, because it's not
right,
really about us as parents.
right. And just be mindful and careful who you're asking and where you're asking for help, because we all know that you are extremely strong, fierce parents, but sometimes when we ask for advice in a certain group, reading a comment isn't always exactly how someone wanted it to come out, or we're extra vulnerable, so we're going to read things a little differently.
Yeah.
Please just go real easy with that kind of advice, and we do recommend you sending us an email or giving us a call. I mean, literally, like, the ways to contact us are everywhere, and you can always start with us or ask us, and we can get you some help or give you some recommendations. And if you don't like those, go right ahead and ask wherever. Just be careful.
Yeah.
That's my little bit there, that there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of, like, you got to do it this way, and then that adds that really terrible stress. Terrible.
Well, it is. And it's that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong.
Which
And
you're not.
You're not. And with breastfeeding, I always say, like, because I always kind of inwardly cringe because people say, like, oh, I must be doing it wrong. And I'm always like, unless you're putting your nipple in your baby's ear, you're probably doing okay. Like,
If you're tired,
it has happened, but like,
you don't judge.
we don't judge.
We're just gonna help you out there.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't even say anything. We would probably just be like, oh, it actually goes
Yeah, like,
here.
oh, here, let me just.
We're just gonna readjust the baby and totally love on you right through that moment. Like,
Yeah.
that's how supportive we are. Like, we're not lying.
It's true. It's true. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think, and that's really the thing. So going back to work can feel really nerve-wracking, even if you're excited to go back to work. And I want to just honor that, like, some folks are excited to go back to work. I know I was. For me, and my baby was a little older. He was about 6 months when I started working at the hospital. But I was so excited to, like, be a grown-up and, like, have no one climbing on me for a few hours at a time. It was amazing. I was like, I'm a real grown up again.
It is. It can be nice.
Yeah, and like, I had all those anxieties about, like, oh, he's still so little? Is he going to be okay? And but not everyone wants to be at home full time, and there is space for that. There's also space for the folks who do want to be at home full time but have to work or are able to be. Like, there's room at our table for everybody.
Yes. Come join us.
Yes, and there's no wrong way to be a parent. I mean, I guess
Hallelujah.
I guess there is, but you have to try. Like,
yeah, it has to really go down.
Yeah, like, and you'll know. But, like, but really, like, if you're doing your best and you love your kids, you're good. You're good. That's all we can do.
That's it. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the big thing, is just give yourself so much grace, and so much gentleness. Be so tender with yourself, because it's a big change. It's a big change having a baby. It's a big change then getting used to taking care of your baby, and then it's a big change going back to work. So, just be so gentle with yourself.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nothing to add to that. Like, yeah, just
So, yeah, and I'm trying to think, is there anything else we didn't cover about going back to work? Oh, yes, there is. Sorry, I answered my own question. How often to pump at work? A lot of parents want to know, how often do you pump at work? And how much milk do I leave for my baby? So how much milk do I leave for my baby? There's actually, it's like a calculator on Kelly Mom. So I'll leave a link in the comments to that. My general rule is typically a little over an ounce an hour. So if you're gone for 4 hours, leave 4 to 6 ounces. That's usually enough. if your caregiver is doing paced bottle feeding, if your caregiver is, if, allowing baby to drink from a fire hose, you may find that you're burning through a lot more milk. So this is something to talk about with your caregiver, whoever that might be, whether it's a family member, a friend, a daycare, because sometimes we have folks who are like, I'm not pumping enough milk, and in fact, they're pumping tons of milk, but their baby's being way overfed.
Yes.
So it's a
Yes,
thing.
that's a great conversation to have with your care provider. And don't be afraid. Like, that's your baby, and if you have a way of doing things, speak up.
Yes. Advocate for yourself. We love that.
Right?
We support you.
Speak up. That's your baby. This is your life, and no one else can tell you exactly how to do it. Back to my whole be careful thing. Just do you.
That's right. You do you. Yeah, and as far as pumping at work, by the time most folks are going back to work, their baby might be eating on average every 3 hours. And that's sort of our, and during the day, that's sort of our benchmark in the lactation world, is like, ideally, you would be getting breast stimulation roughly every 3 hours. So for some folks going to work, that might look like having a hands-free setup in the car on the way to work, if you have a bit of a commute, and pumping on your commute. So some folks will throw a blanket over so that, like truckers who are up higher can't see. The hands-free setup actually covers a lot.
It really does.
It really does. Like, you can't see much. Although when I used to do that, I always worried I'd get pulled over, and I was like, I'm not turning this pump off. So I would be like,
like, what, nothing to see here.
Yeah,
Hey,
like,
can I educate you?
Yeah, hello, officer.
Can you normalize commute pumping?
Yes.
Let's normalize it. Like, people do it. I'm sure some of you watching know exactly what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So that is kind of a genius way to get that in right at the beginning of your day, or right at the end of your day on your way to and from work. If you have breaks, aim for every 3 to 4 hours is usually what I tell folks, which generally is fairly doable. But it's difficult, and not all workplaces are friendly. So I always tell moms and nursing parents, have that conversation before you get back to work. Ask, where can I pump? Right now, the federal law is that your employer has to provide you with a non-bathroom place to pump, non-bathroom. So it doesn't have to be a room that's dedicated to pumping, just literally any room with a locking door is fine. And they have to provide you with reasonable time to pump. Unfortunately, they didn't define what reasonable time is, so it's sort of up to the employer. And also, these protections currently only apply to hourly wage employees. So if you are salaried, you are out of luck, unfortunately, in terms of federal protection. But more and more employers are noticing that this is a good way, it's a good business practice, because then their morale is higher for their employees.
And people stay.
Yeah, and they don't have employees calling out sick because they have mastitis from not pumping for 8 hours at a stretch. So, you can always pull that card too. Yeah. And breastfeeding is currently, lactation is covered under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, because it is a physical condition. If you don't pump for a long time, you can develop a breast infection. So you can always use that language with your employer as well. Like, listen, I could get really sick. So, have that conversation. If you need help with that, if you need support, there are some great resources online, and we're here for you, obviously. Yeah. So,
and we wish you all of the luck in the world. Yeah. We know you can do it.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish that we had more support for it in the US, because the support is pretty scarce, unfortunately. But There are lots and lots of folks out there working to make it better.
Absolutely. Change will happen.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's about what we have
Yeah.
about
Yep.
nursing. And going
And you're
back
going
to,
to include those links.
yes, I will add those links.
Yep.
And so if you want to work with us or if you want to say hi to us in person, you can do that this coming, oh my gosh, it's this coming Saturday, right? Saturday. We're going to be at the Natural Infant and Child Expo, which we call NICE, in Plymouth. It's this Saturday. It's at the 1620 Hotel right on the waterfront in Plymouth. It's a gorgeous hotel. And
Awesome.
It's a really fun expo. We'll be there. Our friend Carrie from Irish Eyes Photography, who we have a blast with, is going to be there. Lots of people that we just adore. So come and say hi, hang out with us. We'll probably have chocolate because we do that. So speaking of, we got to get chocolate this week, Lindsay. And
We can do that.
yeah. You can also hang out with us here on Facebook. On our Facebook page, we have a really nice Instagram feed as well. And our website, risingtidewomen.com, you can get in touch with us directly. We answer our own emails. I know that we're like internet celebrities now, that we have our own Facebook TV show, but we still answer our own emails. So you'll hear directly from one of us. I'm teasing. We're not. But yeah, so just
we're big on being present and really representing our whole mission and philosophy, and the Rising Tide Women's way is to truly circle and support and love on each other and get this done. Get the parenting and the support going.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I love that we really live what we believe. So, we want to support other women, we want to support parents, and we really walk the walk. So if you need something, if you need resources, we're here. We want to help you out.
We're here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a beautiful week. We'll see you next Monday. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.